Welcome back to our channel. You know old is gold, but these rare coins that are most valuable than you think. Don't spend these coins if you have these coins. Please watch complete video. Let's start this. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, in a dusty jar, an old coffee can, or the back of a forgotten drawer, sits a single brown penny. It looks ordinary, almost boring. And yet that one coin, if it happens to be the right 1941 no-mint Mark II penny with a rare error, has been valued by collectors at figures approaching $971,000. Yes, nearly $1 million for 1 cent. And here's the uncomfortable question most people never ask themselves. What if that penny has already passed through your hands, and you never noticed? Wealth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. In 1941, America was standing at the edge of history. The nation was preparing for war, factories were running day and night, and the U.S. Mint was under intense pressure to produce coins quickly. Speed creates mistakes. And mistakes, in the coin world, create legends. The 1941 wheat penny with no mint mark, struck in Philadelphia, became the silent stage for some of the most valuable minting errors ever discovered. Off-metal strikes, doubled dies, misaligned dies, and transitional anomalies quietly slipped into circulation, unnoticed by a public that had no idea what they were holding. Now here's the part that should make you lean in. These coins were not set aside for collectors. They were spent on bread, on milk, on newspapers. Which means they didn't vanish into museums. They blended into everyday life. That's why they still surface today. And that's why demand is exploding. Serious collectors, private investors, and high-net-worth buyers are aggressively hunting authenticated examples, driving prices into territory once reserved for fine art. This isn't nostalgia, it's a market move. And if you're thinking, come on, how likely is that? Remember this: every rare coin ever sold started as an ordinary coin someone almost ignored. Because the 1941 no-mint Mark II penny is no longer a quiet secret. Grading services are seeing increased submissions. Auction houses are spotlighting error coins like never before. And when a verified, high-grade example with the right error enters the market, competition is fierce. Prices climb fast, and opportunities close even faster. This is where fear steps in, not panic, but the fear of missing out. The fear that the coin sitting in your possession today could be tomorrow's headline sale, but only if you recognize it in time. Let's interrupt this thought for a second with a little reality check. Be honest, when was the last time you actually looked closely at a penny? Not glanced at it. Looked at it. Lincoln's portrait. The wheat ears. The date. If the answer is, I can't remember, you're not alone. Most people overlook pennies because they think pennies are worthless. That belief has cost Americans millions of dollars over the years. Funny how the smallest coin carries the biggest blind spot, isn't it? Back to the story. What makes this coin so powerful isn't just rarity, it's psychology. There is something deeply emotional about turning something dismissed as insignificant into life-changing wealth. That emotional payoff fuels demand. Buyers aren't just purchasing copper in history, they're buying the story, the error, the one-in-millions moment that shouldn't exist. And when demand is driven by emotion and scarcity at the same time, prices don't drift upward, they surge. This is the moment of decision. Because right now, you're either someone who knows what to look for, or someone who hopes they never had it. The market doesn't reward hope. It rewards awareness. If you own old pennies, inherited collections, rolled coins, or even loose change saved over decades, you're already closer to opportunity than you think. The wealthy don't wait for certainty, they act on probability combined with knowledge. And here's the most empowering part of this entire story. You don't need to be a lifelong collector to participate in this market. You just need to take the first step, examine, authenticate, and position your coin correctly. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and one valued near $971,000 is not luck, it's recognition, verification, and timing. Miss any one of those, and the moment passes. Let me ask you something that might make you smile. If a stranger offered you $1 million for a penny, would you laugh? Or would you check your pockets first? That pause, that instinct to check, that's wisdom waking up. And wisdom, paired with action, is how ordinary people step into extraordinary outcomes. As we close this story, remember this. History doesn't repeat itself, but valuable mistakes don't last forever. Coins disappear into private vaults. Collections lock away supply. And every year, fewer authentic 1941 no-mint mark wheat penny errors remain available to the public. Demand keeps rising. Time keeps moving. And the window narrows quietly. So don't dismiss the small things. Don't underestimate the past. And above all, don't assume wealth always looks impressive at first glance. Sometimes it looks like a penny. And sometimes, that penny changes everything. Most people walk past life-changing money every single day without realizing it. And today, I want to ask you a question that might make you slightly uncomfortable, but stay with me. What if the most valuable asset you'll ever own isn't in your stock portfolio, your retirement account, or your real estate, but sitting quietly inside a drawer, a jar, or an old box you haven't opened in years? Because right now, collectors across the United States are aggressively searching for one specific coin, the 1942 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark, and in the elite era category, its current market value has reached up to $966,000. Yes, 1 cent. And no, that's not a typo. This is where curiosity turns into excitement, and excitement turns into urgency. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The people who recognize rare coins early are the ones who build quiet wealth while everyone else scrolls past. And the 1942 no-mint mark wheat penny error is no longer a secret among serious collectors. It's in demand. It's being hunted. And it's disappearing fast into private collections. Let's step back for a moment. Because every great story starts with context. In 1942, America was fully engaged in World War II. Copper was critical for the war effort, minting pressure was intense, and mistakes happened behind closed doors at the Philadelphia Mint, the only U.S. mint that produced pennies without a mint mark. These weren't supposed to be special. They were supposed to be ordinary. But history had other plans. Under rushed wartime conditions, striking anomalies occurred, errors that slipped through quality control and quietly entered circulation. And decades later, those same mistakes became 6-figure and 7-figure treasures. Now, here's where fear quietly enters the room. Because most people have already handled one of these coins at some point in their life, and spent it. Imagine that realization for a moment. 1 cent used for a newspaper. 1 cent tossed into a parking meter. 1 cent that could have changed a family's financial future forever. If that makes you pause, good, it should. Because the difference between regret and reward is awareness. Serious collectors and high net worth investors don't chase hype. They chase scarcity, condition, and verified error types. The 1942 no-mint mark wheat penny with the right error characteristics sits at the intersection of all three. We're talking about rare off-metal strikes, dramatic die errors, and anomalies that grading services consider top-tier. When authenticated and preserved in high condition, these coins don't just sell, they spark bidding wars. And when demand meets rarity, prices don't ask for permission to rise. Here's a quick attention reset. Because I know what some of you are thinking. I've got a jar of pennies, but let's be honest, it's probably just spare change. Fair thought. But let me flip that on you. Do you check every receipt before you throw it away? Of course you do. So why wouldn't you check something that could be worth nearly $1 million? That's not optimism, that's logic. The excitement builds when you realize this market isn't slowing down. Wealthy collectors are moving away from volatile assets and toward tangible history, assets you can hold, store, and pass down. Rare pennies, especially wartime errors, are now viewed as portable wealth. Quiet wealth. The kind that doesn't announce itself, but commands respect when it appears. And the 1942 no-mint mark wheat penny sits squarely in that category. Now comes urgency. Because markets reward action, not intention. Every year, fewer of these coins remain undiscovered. Every year, more are permanently locked away in collections. And every year, prices adjust upward to reflect reality. Waiting doesn't make this opportunity safer, it makes it more expensive. The people who win in this space are not gamblers. They are decision-makers. As we enter Act 3, the story becomes personal. Because this isn't just about coins. It's about mindset. About recognizing value where others see ordinary. About understanding that wealth doesn't always arrive loudly, it often whispers first. Somewhere in your home, or in a collection passed down through generations, there may be a coin that carries the weight of history and the power of transformation. Picture this for a moment. A certified 1942 no-mint mark wheat penny error, professionally graded, displayed under glass at auction. The room is quiet. Bidders are focused. Numbers climb. And what once cost 1 cent now commands respect, status, and financial freedom. That's not fantasy. That's the market. So here's the final question, and I'll leave you with it because it matters. If opportunity is knocking this loudly, why wouldn't you answer? The collectors already know. The demand is already here. And the next life-changing discovery doesn't belong to the lucky, it belongs to the prepared. Because sometimes, the smallest things carry the greatest value. And sometimes, 1 penny is all it takes. Imagine this for a second. Somewhere in America, right now, a simple brown penny is sitting in a drawer, a jar, maybe even between couch cushions. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And yet, that single coin has quietly crossed into a value territory once reserved for mansions, private investments, and generational wealth. Today, we're talking about the 1944 no-mint mark 1 cent wheat penny error, a coin that has stunned collectors, shocked auction houses, and surged into a market value approaching $945,000. Yes, nearly $1 million for a penny. And here's the unsettling question that should stop you in your tracks. What if you already own one, and don't know it? This is not a fairy tale. This is not hype. This is the hidden side of American money that most people never see. And that's exactly why this story matters. Because while the average person walks past old coins without a second glance, a small group of informed individuals understand something powerful. Rarity plus timing equals opportunity. And right now, timing is everything. Demand for elite U.S.-era pennies has exploded, driven by high-net-worth collectors, private investors, and institutions racing to secure the rarest examples before they disappear into permanent collections. Once that happens, the door doesn't just close, it locks. Let's rewind to 1944. America was deep in World War II. Copper was critical to the war effort. Ammunition, wiring, military equipment, metal shortages reshaped everything, including coin production. Most people know about the famous 1943 steel cents, but what fewer realize is that the chaos of wartime minting created something even more extraordinary the following year. In 1944, pennies were supposed to return to copper. They did, but not perfectly. Errors slipped through. Blanks were mixed. Processes overlapped. And in that narrow window of industrial pressure, history made a mistake. A valuable one. Now here's where the story turns serious. The 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny error isn't valuable because it's old. It's valuable because it shouldn't exist the way it does. Collectors don't chase age, they chase impossibility. And this coin checks every box. Wrong metal characteristics, striking anomalies, microscopic production inconsistencies that only occurred under extreme conditions. The kind of conditions you can't recreate. Ever. Which means the supply is permanently frozen, while demand keeps climbing. That imbalance is where real money is made. Quick pattern interrupt. Be honest with yourself for a second. If someone offered you a penny, would you even pick it up off the ground? Most people wouldn't. And that's exactly why so many fortunes are missed. Wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a coffee can. What makes this penny command such attention today is not just its era status, but its placement in the modern market. We are living in a moment where tangible assets are outperforming uncertainty. Rare coins are portable wealth. They are private. They are liquid at the high end. And the 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny error has become a trophy piece, one that signals status and foresight among elite collectors. When coins like this appear, they don't linger. They move quickly, quietly, and often behind closed doors. Here's the emotional reality most people don't like to confront. Every year that passes without awareness increases the risk of loss. Coins are cleaned improperly, spent accidentally, given away, melted. And once that happens, the value isn't reduced, it's erased. Forever. That's the fear most seasoned collectors carry, and it's why urgency matters. Not panic, but informed action. Because knowledge, applied at the right moment, changes outcomes. And let's talk excitement, because it deserves its moment. Few things compare to discovering that something you already own may be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. No lottery ticket. No risky speculation. Just awareness. The thrill isn't just the money, it's the realization that you were closer to wealth than you ever imagined. That's a powerful shift in mindset, especially for people who understand the value of timing and discretion. Another quick reset question for you. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies instead of spending them? Exactly. As demand continues to rise, the 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny error has positioned itself as one of the most sought-after U.S. small cent anomalies in the market. High-grade examples are aggressively pursued, and even lesser-known pieces are being re-evaluated as collectors widen their search. The smart money isn't asking if rare coins matter anymore. That debate is over. The smart money is asking who already owns them, and who is ready to sell at the right moment. This brings us to the final act of the story, and it's the most important one. Opportunity doesn't knock forever. Markets move. Windows close. And the people who benefit are rarely the loudest, they're the most prepared. If you've ever inherited old pennies, stored rolls away, or held onto coins, just in case, this is your signal. Not to rush blindly, but to recognize that you may be holding an asset the market is actively hunting for. The difference between those who watch wealth pass by and those who step into it is simple awareness followed by decisive action. The 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny era represents more than a coin. It represents a moment where history, rarity, and demand collide. And those moments don't repeat often. So before you dismiss the humble penny, remember this: some of the most powerful opportunities in life come disguised as ordinary things. And the people who live well, who build quietly, who move confidently into wealth, are the ones who learn to look twice when everyone else looks away. Imagine this for a second. Somewhere in America, right now, a small brown penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, maybe even taped inside an old envelope. It doesn't look special. It doesn't sparkle. And yet, collectors would fight to own it. What if I told you that a single 1948 no-mint mark wheat penny, a coin most people would casually spend, has commanded prices approaching $989,000? That's not pocket change. That's life-changing money hiding in plain sight. And here's the unsettling part: most people who own it don't even know what they're holding. Are you one of them? It's 1948. The country is rebuilding, optimism is high, and the U.S. Mint is producing millions of wheat pennies in Philadelphia, coins with no mint mark at all. On the surface, they look ordinary. But history has a habit of creating rare moments inside ordinary systems. Under pressure, speed, and human error, something extraordinary slipped through. Subtle minting mistakes, microscopic variations, and production anomalies were born during this time, and those imperfections are exactly what elite collectors crave today. Ironically, the very flaws that once made these coins undesirable are now the reason they're hunted like buried treasure. Funny how life works like that, right? The thing everyone ignored suddenly becomes the thing everyone wants. Because when experts talk about the 1948 no-mint mark wheat penny, they aren't talking about the average coin you'd get in change at a grocery store. They're talking about rare error examples, coins with specific die anomalies, striking irregularities, and preservation levels so exceptional they stop seasoned collectors mid-sentence. These are the coins that don't politely enter the market, they make headlines. When one surfaces, demand doesn't whisper, it roars. Auction rooms get quiet, bids climb fast, and suddenly a 1-cent coin becomes a six-figure conversation. And here's the question that should make you sit up straight. If you owned one, would you even recognize it before someone else did? This is where fear and urgency quietly step in. Because every year, valuable pennies are sold for a fraction of their worth. Not because the market isn't strong, it's stronger than ever, but because the seller didn't know what they had. The rare coin market doesn't reward hesitation or ignorance. It rewards awareness. Right now, high net worth collectors are aggressively seeking top-tier wheat pennies, especially those tied to late 1940s production errors. Demand is global, supply is finite, and once these coins disappear into private collections, they rarely come back out. Miss the moment, and the moment moves on without you. Kind of like passing up beachfront property in the 1970s because it looked ordinary. This isn't just a story about a coin, it's a story about perspective. The people who win in this space aren't lucky. They're informed. They understand that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer. If you're between 30 and 65, you're in the prime position to benefit from this knowledge. You've lived long enough to inherit, collect, or store old coins, and you're wise enough now to recognize opportunity when it shows up dressed as something small. That 1948 wheat penny isn't just copper and history, it's leverage. It's possibility. It's proof that the past can still pay dividends in the present. So before you dismiss that old penny collection, before you assume it's just nostalgia, pause. Ask yourself a better question. What if the most valuable thing you own isn't the one you insure, but the one you've overlooked? The market is hot, demand is intense, and elite buyers are watching closely. The only real risk left is waiting too long to look. Because once you know what to search for, you can never unknow it, and that knowledge alone already puts you ahead of most people. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small brown penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a coffee can, or an old cigar box. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't scream for attention. And yet, it carries a potential value that has stunned seasoned collectors and changed lives almost overnight. What if I told you that a single 1952 wheat penny, a coin most people have seen 100 times, has reached market valuations approaching $981,000? Not in fantasy. Not in theory. But in real, documented collector demand. And here's the uncomfortable question that makes people shift in their seats. What if you already own one and don't even know it? This is where the story begins. Act 1 is about ignorance and awakening, because history has a strange habit of hiding wealth in plain sight. The 1952 Lincoln wheat penny was struck in Denver during a period when America was rebuilding, factories were moving fast, and quality control was not always perfect. Millions of these pennies were produced, and most are ordinary. But a microscopic fraction were not. A tiny number escaped the mint carrying rare minting errors, errors so subtle that untrained eyes pass right over them, yet so powerful that elite collectors aggressively compete to own them today. And this is where fear quietly enters the room, because every year thousands of people unknowingly spend or discard coins that could have altered their financial future. Now here's a quick reality check, and stay with me, because this part matters. If every 1952 penny were valuable, they wouldn't be valuable at all. Scarcity is the engine. Demand is the fuel. And mint errors are the spark. Certain 1952 wheat pennies show dramatic die errors, double design elements, off-metal strikes, or structural anomalies created during high-pressure minting. These are not damage. They are manufacturing fingerprints, frozen in copper, and collectors treat them like fine art. In top condition, authenticated and graded by major certification services, some examples have entered elite price territory, the kind of territory usually reserved for luxury watches, classic cars, or blue-chip art. And here's where excitement replaces fear. Because unlike stocks or real estate, you don't need permission to own this asset. You don't need a broker. You don't need a trust fund. You simply need awareness. Think about how absurdly small this coin is, and how massive the demand surrounding it has become. It's almost funny, right? A penny. The same thing people toss into tip jars without a second thought. And yet, In high-end numismatic auctions, the right penny stops rooms cold. Bidding paddles rise. Prices climb. And suddenly, copper outweighs gold. The market for rare US-era coins is not cooling down, it's tightening. As more collectors and investors shift toward tangible assets, especially those with historical credibility, premium wheat pennies are being pulled off the market and locked into private collections. That means fewer available examples, more competition, and higher valuations. Translation? Time is not neutral here. Time favors the informed. And it punishes the unaware. Every year that passes without checking your coins is another year closer to someone else discovering their value before you do. Let me ask you something, just humor me for a second. If someone offered you $900,000 for something already sitting in your home, would you at least want to know about it? Exactly. And yet millions of Americans never look twice at the pennies they inherited, stored, or casually accumulated over decades. This is why knowledge in this space isn't just power, it's protection. Protection from regret. Protection from missed opportunity. Protection from the quiet, painful realization that wealth passed through your hands unnoticed. This is where the story connects directly to you. Because the people who benefit most from rare coin discoveries aren't gamblers or speculators. They're patient holders. They're people who understand that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it looks ordinary. And sometimes it weighs exactly 1 gram and says, 1952, on the front. The collectors driving today's demand are serious, well-funded, and global. They are not chasing trends. They are securing legacy assets. And when a high-grade 1952-era penny appears, the response is immediate and aggressive. Here's the positive truth that rarely gets said out loud. You don't need millions to enter a wealthy lifestyle mindset. You need one informed decision. One moment where curiosity beats complacency. One choice to verify rather than assume. Whether you plan to sell, hold, or pass it down, understanding what you own changes your financial posture completely. And if you don't own one, you still gain something even more valuable: awareness. Because awareness is what puts people in position before opportunity knocks. So before you roll your eyes at that old jar of pennies, before you dismiss inherited coins as sentimental clutter, pause. History has already proven that the smallest objects can carry the biggest outcomes. The 1952 Dewey penny is no longer just a coin. It's a symbol of hidden value, rising demand, and the quiet advantage of those who pay attention. And the only real question left is this: will you be the person who discovers what they have, or the person who once had it and never knew? If this story made you curious, that's not an accident. Curiosity is where wealth awareness begins. And sometimes the road to a richer life starts with something you've been holding on to for years, without ever realizing what it was worth. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, inside an old cigar box, a forgotten coffee can, or a dusty desk drawer, there's a single penny quietly sitting there, worth more than most homes. Not a stock, not crypto, not real estate. A penny. And not just any penny. A 1952 San Francisco mint wheat penny with a rare and powerful error that has shocked collectors and driven elite buyers into bidding wars approaching $987,000. Now here's the unsettling question that should instantly grab your attention. What if that penny has already passed through your hands, and you never noticed? What if the next life-changing discovery isn't out there somewhere, but already inside your home? This is not a fantasy. This is not hype. This is the hidden reality of rare American coinage, where history, scarcity, and microscopic details collide to create explosive value. The 1952 wheat penny was minted during a period when America was transitioning, rebuilding, and redefining itself after war. San Francisco mint coins from this era were produced in lower quantities, and when errors occurred, they weren't supposed to survive. Yet some did. And today, those survivors are among the most aggressively hunted pennies in the entire U.S. coin market. Serious collectors don't see copper. They see opportunity, legacy, and leverage. And the most powerful part: most people still overlook them. Right now, Thousands of Americans unknowingly own rare coins because pennies were never treated as valuable. They were tossed into jars, dropped into sofas, passed down without a second glance. That's where fear quietly creeps in, the fear of missing out, the fear that something valuable slipped away unnoticed. But that fear has a flip side, and it's called awareness. Once you know what to look for, the game changes forever. A 1952 wheat penny with the right error characteristics, such as striking anomalies, off-center details, doubled elements, or planchet irregularities, can leap from 1 cent to nearly $1 million in value. That's not speculation. That's documented market demand driven by scarcity and competition. And here's a quick pattern interrupt for you. Be honest, when was the last time you actually looked at a penny instead of ignoring it? Exactly. That moment right there is where fortunes are either missed or made. As we move deeper into the story, Act 2 brings excitement and urgency. The rare coin market is no longer a quiet hobby. It's a battlefield of wealth preservation. High net worth collectors, investors fleeing inflation, and legacy buyers are all competing for tangible assets that can't be printed, diluted, or digitally erased. Rare wheat pennies, especially era coins from the San Francisco Mint, are in extreme demand because supply is fixed forever. No more will ever be made. Every year, more are lost, damaged, or locked away in private collections. That shrinking availability fuels explosive price action. When a top-grade 1952 era penny appears at auction, it doesn't wait. It commands attention. It commands respect. And it commands serious money. Here's where excitement spikes. You don't need to be wealthy to participate. You don't need insider connections. You need knowledge, timing, and action. That's it. Many of today's most successful coin sellers started exactly where you are, curious, skeptical, and holding ordinary-looking coins. The difference is they took the time to understand what others ignored. They learned that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the smallest places. Let me ask you another question, just to reset your attention for a second. If someone offered you $987,000 today, would you ignore the opportunity because it looked small? Of course not. Yet millions of people unknowingly do exactly that with rare pennies every single year. The 1952 wheat penny is not just a coin. It's a symbol of how wealth works in the real world. It rewards patience, awareness, and decisiveness. It proves that luxury and financial freedom are often built quietly, not loudly. While others chase trends, the smart money studies scarcity. While others spend, the strategic few preserve and multiply. This is why rare coins have survived every economic storm, from recessions to inflation to market crashes. They don't rely on promises. They rely on history. Right now, demand for high-grade wheat pennies is accelerating. Certification services are overwhelmed. Auctions are setting records. Collectors are paying premiums just to secure ownership before prices move even higher. And the window of opportunity narrows every year. That urgency you feel? That's not pressure, it's clarity. It's the realization that time matters in wealth creation. Those who act early win differently than those who wait. Picture this future. Instead of wondering whether you missed out, you're the one making the decision. You're the one holding a verified, authenticated piece of American history that buyers want and respect. You're no longer guessing, you're positioned. That's what this journey offers. Not luck. Not gambling. But informed confidence. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it. Don't underestimate it. Examine it. Respect it. Because the smallest coin can carry the biggest transformation. And the 1952 wheat penny, with the right error, may not just change your collection. It could redefine your financial story. If you opened a dusty drawer tonight and found a single brown penny staring back at you, would you believe me if I told you that coin could quietly be worth up to $913,000? Not a gold bar. Not a stock certificate. A single 1954 Lincoln wheat penny, the kind most Americans have held, spent, or ignored without a second thought. And here's the unsettling part: thousands of people have already had this coin pass through their hands, and never knew what they were holding. So before you scroll, before you dismiss this as just another penny story, ask yourself one uncomfortable question. What if the most valuable asset you'll ever own is already in your house, and you don't even know it yet? This is not hype. This is not fantasy. This is the real, documented world of elite coin collecting, where rarity meets timing, and where a tiny mint error can transform copper into a life-changing fortune. Today, we're stepping into that world through one specific coin, the 1954 DeWitt penny, struck in Denver, during a time when America was rebuilding, expanding, and unknowingly creating some of the most sought-after era coins in history. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll never look at a penny the same way again, and you may feel an urgent need to check every jar, box, and inherited collection you've ever ignored. In 1954, pennies were everywhere. They jingled in pockets, filled cash registers, and were often tossed aside as meaningless change. The Denver Mint was producing millions upon millions of 1-cent coins, moving fast, meeting demand, and pushing volume over perfection. And that's exactly where destiny slipped in. Because when speed meets metal, mistakes happen, and in the coin world, mistakes are not flaws. They are multipliers of value. The 1954 DeWitt penny looks ordinary at first glance. Abraham Lincoln's calm profile on the front. 2 wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent on the back. Nothing flashy. Nothing loud. Which is precisely why so many people overlooked it. But hidden within a tiny percentage of these coins are rare mint errors, errors so significant, so visually striking, and so scarce that elite collectors compete aggressively to own them. We're talking about dramatic double dies, off-metal strikes, and precision misalignments that should never have left the mint, yet somehow did. Here's a quick reset, because I know what you might be thinking right now. If this penny is worth that much, wouldn't everyone know about it? Funny question. Everyone also knows about real estate, yet some people get rich with it, and others don't. Knowledge is common. Recognition is rare. And recognition is where money is made. Now imagine this scenario. Someone inherits a small box of old pennies from a parent or grandparent. Nothing special, they think. Just memories. Then one day, out of curiosity, boredom, or instinct, they look closer. They notice something strange. A doubling in the date. A misalignment in the lettering. A texture that doesn't belong. That single moment of curiosity becomes a turning point, because certain 1954 DeWitt penny era varieties are among the most aggressively pursued Lincoln cents in the market. When authenticated and graded in top condition, these coins have reached market values approaching $913,000. Not asking prices. Real, recorded, competitive valuations driven by scarcity and demand. High-end collectors don't hesitate on coins like this. They move fast. They pay strong. And they don't negotiate much, because they know another opportunity may not come again for decades. This is where urgency quietly enters the room. The coin market doesn't wait. Demand for elite-era pennies has surged as investors look for tangible assets, things they can hold, protect, and pass on. And as more people search, the window narrows. Fewer undiscovered coins remain. Every year, more are locked into private collections, vaults, and estates. Which means the question isn't, will these coins be valuable? The question is, will you recognize one before it's too late? Let's lighten the mood for a second, because irony deserves a smile. Imagine paying for a cup of coffee with a penny that could have bought the entire cafe. Sounds ridiculous, right? Yet it's happened. More than once. History is full of people who unknowingly spent fortunes because no one ever told them what to look for. This is the moment where everything connects. The history. The errors. The demand. The lifestyle. Because owning, or discovering, a rare penny like the 1954 DeWitt cent isn't just about money. It's about positioning yourself differently. It's about seeing value where others see nothing. Wealthy collectors don't chase trends. They acquire scarcity. And scarcity, once gone, never comes back. If you are between the ages of 30 and 65, living in the United States, there is a real possibility that coins like this have already passed through your family. Old jars, estate collections, safety deposit boxes no one has opened in years. These pennies were saved because they were old, not because people knew they were powerful. And today, that lack of awareness becomes your opportunity. But opportunity only works if you act with intention. Coins like the 1954 D-era penny are in high demand, and that demand is growing louder, not quieter. Serious buyers are watching. Auction houses are watching. And the people who win in this space are not the loudest, they're the earliest, and the most prepared. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Fear and excitement often feel the same in the body. One paralyzes you. The other propels you forward. The difference is what you choose to do next. You can ignore this and move on, or you can look again, more carefully, at what you already own. Because sometimes, wealth doesn't arrive loudly. Sometimes, it's been whispering from the bottom of a jar for 70 years, waiting for someone wise enough to finally listen. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a simple brown penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a coffee can, or an old cigar box. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't shout. Yet if its owner knew what they were holding, their entire financial future could change overnight. Because today, we are talking about one of the most powerful and mysterious coins ever struck in the United States, the 1955 no-mint Mark Lincoln Wheat penny error, a coin so legendary that collectors are paying up to $977,000 to own one. And here's the uncomfortable question most people never ask themselves: what if you already have one, and don't even know it? The United States is booming. Factories are running at full speed, families are optimistic, and the U.S. Mint is under intense pressure to produce massive quantities of coins for a growing economy. Speed mattered more than perfection. And that urgency, that rush, is exactly where history cracked open an opportunity. During production at the Philadelphia Mint, a small number of wheat pennies were struck with a dramatic error that would later shock the numismatic world. There was no mint mark, which was normal for Philadelphia at the time, but the real magic lay in the mistake. A misalignment so bold, so obvious, that even non-collectors feel something is off the second they see it. This wasn't a tiny flaw. This was a mistake you could spot from across the room. And mistakes like this are where fortunes are born. Now let's pause for a second. Because here's the funny part. Millions of people have held pennies in their hands and thought, this is worthless. We toss them into jars, leave them in cars, or give them to children like they're nothing. A penny? Come on. But what if I told you that the same coin most people ignore is the very object elite collectors compete for, fight over, and quietly pay life-changing money to secure? That disconnect, between what something looks like and what it's truly worth, is where fear and opportunity collide. And history always rewards the people who recognize value before the crowd does. As we move deeper into Act 2, the story intensifies. The 1955 no-mint Mark Wheat penny error is not just rare, it is iconic. Collectors don't merely want it, they need it. It represents a perfect storm of historical timing, manufacturing pressure, and visual drama. When authenticated examples surface, the market reacts instantly. Serious buyers step in. Auctions heat up. Prices climb fast. And in today's market, with wealth flowing aggressively into tangible assets, coins like this are no longer hobbies. They are strategic stores of value. This is why recent high-grade specimens have reached market values approaching $977,000, and why demand continues to rise instead of cool down. Here's where urgency quietly takes the wheel. Coins are not being made like this anymore. Errors of this magnitude are almost impossible under modern minting technology. That means the supply is permanently locked, while demand keeps growing as new collectors enter the market every year. Wealthy buyers are shifting away from volatile assets and into physical history, items that cannot be printed, duplicated, or digitally erased. And every time one of these pennies disappears into a private collection, the remaining examples become even more valuable. Scarcity doesn't knock politely. It sneaks up on people who wait too long. Let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. When was the last time you actually looked at your old pennies? Not glanced. Looked. Because many of these coins were spent, saved, and passed down without anyone realizing what they were holding. Families unknowingly traded potential wealth for a cup of coffee decades ago. Others kept them without understanding their significance. The difference between regret and reward often comes down to awareness. And awareness starts right here, right now. This isn't just about money, it's about timing. Right now, the coin market is experiencing a historic shift. More buyers, fewer sellers, record auction prices, and increased media attention. The 1955 wheat penny era sits at the center of this movement like a crown jewel. Collectors recognize it instantly. Dealers talk about it in hushed, respectful tones. And when one appears for sale, it doesn't sit around waiting for attention, it gets absorbed by the market fast. Very fast. And here's a light reality check, delivered with a smile. If you ever hear someone say, "All pennies are the same," you already know they've never held one of these. That's like saying all paintings are the same because they're on canvas. Value lives in the details. And this coin is nothing but detail, story, and power. Because this story isn't really about a coin. It's about decision making. It's about recognizing opportunity when it appears ordinary. The people who build wealth don't wait for permission. They act when others hesitate. If you own old wheat pennies, you are not late. You are early, if you act wisely. The market is hot. Demand is strong. And knowledge is your leverage. The fear is not missing out tomorrow. The fear is realizing 5 years from now that you had the opportunity, the information, and the asset, and did nothing. The excitement is knowing that a single coin, properly identified and positioned, can change everything. And the urgency comes from understanding that markets reward the prepared, not the curious. So here's the final thought. Somewhere, someone is discovering that a penny they once ignored is now a gateway to generational wealth. There is no weakness in this story. Only potential. Only value. Only demand. And the people who win are the ones who recognize that history doesn't announce itself loudly, it whispers. The question is simple. Picture this for a second. You're holding a penny. Not a gold bar. Not a stock certificate. A simple brown 1-cent coin that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. Now let me ask you a dangerous question that might change how you see money forever. What if that penny quietly holds the power to rewrite your financial story? This is not hype. This is not fantasy. And this is definitely not about luck. This is the story of the 1956 no-mint Mark Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that has shocked collectors, stunned auction houses, and in rare verified cases has pushed toward a jaw-dropping market value near $923,000. Yes, for a penny. And if that sentence made you sit up a little straighter, good. It's supposed to. In 1956, America was booming. Elvis was on the radio, families were optimistic, and pennies were pouring out of the Philadelphia Mint by the millions. No mint mark meant business as usual, or so everyone thought. These coins passed through countless hands, bought coffee, paid tolls, disappeared into jars, drawers, and forgotten boxes. Most people treated them like noise in the background of life. And that's exactly where opportunity likes to hide. Here's the uncomfortable truth that triggers a little fear. Thousands of Americans have already thrown away, spent, or ignored coins that today would have changed their lives. Somewhere, someone used a 6-figure penny to buy a newspaper and never knew it. That mistake is being repeated right now, every single day. And the question is simple. Will you be one of the people who misses it, or one of the few who finally pays attention? Now let's interrupt the pattern for a moment. Be honest with yourself. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny instead of treating it like a nuisance? If you're thinking, "I don't have time for that," remember this: people make time for things that matter. And money always matters. Because the value of the 1956 no-mint Mark wheat penny doesn't come from age alone. It comes from rare, highly sought-after minting errors and exceptional conditions that separate ordinary coins from legendary ones. Subtle doubling in the lettering, dramatic off-center strikes, planchet errors, or abnormal metal compositions have turned seemingly identical pennies into trophy assets. These aren't flaws. In the collector world, they are fingerprints of rarity. And here's why demand is exploding. High net worth collectors are moving away from volatile assets and into tangible history. Rare U.S. coins are portable wealth. They don't depend on interest rates, governments, or corporate earnings calls. They fit in the palm of your hand and travel through time untouched. That's why when an elite grade 1956 no mint mark era penny appears, the room changes. Phones come out. Bidding wars start. Prices climb fast, and hesitation gets punished. Let me ask you another question, and don't laugh, because this one is serious. What's more exciting, watching your savings inch along in a bank account, or discovering that something you already own could be worth more than most houses? Exactly. There's urgency here, and it's real. The supply is not increasing. No more 1956 wheat pennies will ever be made. Every year, more are damaged, lost, or locked away in permanent collections. At the same time, interest from serious buyers keeps growing. That gap between shrinking supply and rising demand is where massive value lives. Waiting doesn't make you safer. Waiting makes you late. This is where you stop seeing yourself as someone who might have something, and start acting like someone who understands the game. Wealthy collectors don't guess. They verify. They authenticate. They position themselves early, before the headlines, before the crowd, before the regret sets in. Imagine the quiet confidence of knowing exactly what's in your possession. Imagine having a professional confirm that a small copper coin you've had for years is suddenly being discussed in rooms where six-figure deals happen without blinking. That's not just money. That's leverage. That's optionality. That's freedom showing up in an unexpected form. And let's keep this positive and real. Even if your coin isn't the headline-making example, knowledge alone upgrades your position. You stop being the person who unknowingly gives value away and become the person who recognizes it. That shift in mindset is how wealthy lifestyles are built, one smart decision at a time. Here's a final pattern interrupt before we close. If pennies were truly worthless, why are the smartest collectors in the country hunting them like treasure? Think about that. The story of the 1956 no mint mark wheat penny is not just about a coin. It's about awareness. It's about refusing to underestimate small things. It's about understanding that life-changing opportunities don't always arrive loudly. Sometimes they've been sitting quietly in a drawer, waiting for the right person to finally look closely enough. So take action with confidence. Look again. Verify what you have. Stay ahead of the crowd. Because in a world where most people overlook history, those who recognize it are the ones who get rewarded. And the next incredible discovery story everyone talks about could begin with something as simple as a penny you almost ignored. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, there's a single penny sitting quietly in a drawer, a coffee jar, maybe even a dusty box in the garage. It doesn't shine. It doesn't scream for attention. And yet, it carries a story powerful enough to change a family's financial future overnight. What if I told you that one ordinary-looking 1957 wheat penny, with no mint mark at all, has been linked to market values approaching $991,000? Before you dismiss that number, pause for a second and ask yourself this uncomfortable question: how many pennies have you already spent, ignored, or given away that could have changed your life? This is not a fairy tale. This is not hype. This is the hidden reality of American coin history, where small mistakes created massive opportunities. And today, you're about to discover why the 1957 no mint mark Lincoln wheat penny has become one of the most quietly hunted coins in the United States. Stay with me, because missing this information could be far more expensive than you think. Suburbs are expanding, televisions are glowing in living rooms, and the U.S. Mint is producing millions of 1-cent coins to keep up with daily commerce. Philadelphia, which used no mint mark at the time, was working at full speed. And when speed meets pressure, history shows us something fascinating happens. Mistakes slip through. Not obvious mistakes. Dangerous mistakes. The kind that look ordinary, until you know what to look for. Now here's the part most people miss. The value of this penny isn't about age alone. It's about error, rarity, and demand colliding at the perfect moment in time. Certain 1957 no-mint mark wheat pennies left the mint with striking anomalies, subtle doubling, off-metal planchet errors, die misalignments, and rare strike characteristics that weren't caught during quality control. To the untrained eye, it's just a penny. To elite collectors and high-end auction houses, it's a six-figure opportunity waiting to be authenticated. Let me ask you something that might sting just a little. If you found a penny today, would you even stop to look at it? Most people wouldn't. And that's exactly why this story matters. Because wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. And sometimes it's already sitting in your home, waiting for the right moment to be recognized. Over the last decade, demand for rare US-era coins has surged dramatically. Serious collectors, private investors, and legacy buyers are aggressively pursuing authenticated wheat pennies, especially those tied to mid-century minting anomalies. Why? Because supply is fixed forever, but demand keeps rising. Once a rare 1957-era penny is locked into a private collection, it may never return to the open market again. Documented high-grade examples with confirmed era characteristics have drawn staggering attention at elite auctions, with valuations pushing toward the upper six-figure range and, in rare circumstances, approaching the $991,000 mark depending on condition, rarity, and provenance. And here's the part that creates real urgency. Most of these coins were discovered by ordinary people, not professional dealers. People cleaning out estates. People sorting old jars. People who almost threw them away. Quick pattern interrupt, be honest. If a penny fell on the floor right now, would you bend down to pick it up, or would you let it roll away? Funny how perspective changes when you realize that same penny could fund a retirement, isn't it? What fuels this market isn't luck, it's awareness. Collectors aren't chasing these coins because they're common. They're chasing them because they represent a perfect storm of history, error, scarcity, and emotional connection to America's past. The Lincoln wheat penny is iconic. At a no-mint mark Philadelphia strike from 1957, combine it with a legitimate error, and suddenly you're holding something that institutional buyers respect and aggressively compete for. Right now, you fall into one of two groups. The first group hears stories like this, feels a spark of excitement, and then does nothing. They move on. They forget. And years later, they watch someone else's discovery make headlines. The second group leans forward. They take inventory. They look twice. They understand that wealth often rewards those who act before certainty feels comfortable. If you own old wheat pennies, especially those dated 1957 with no mint mark, the smartest move isn't selling quickly, it's verifying intelligently. Authentication, grading, and expert evaluation are the gateway to unlocking true market value. The difference between a common penny and a nearly $1 million asset can come down to details smaller than the thickness of a human hair. Here's the most important truth of all. Opportunities like this don't repeat forever. As more coins are discovered and certified, the window narrows. The market becomes tighter. Prices don't soften, they harden. And the people who benefit most are the ones who recognize the moment early, when curiosity turned into action. So before you dismiss this as just another coin story, ask yourself one final question. What does it really cost you to look? A few minutes. A little attention. And the courage to believe that something small could carry extraordinary value. Because sometimes, the difference between an ordinary life and an extraordinary one is knowing when not to ignore a penny. And if you're holding one right now, quiet, unassuming, dated 1957 with no mint mark, understand this. You may not just be holding a coin. You may be holding history, demand, power, and a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that doesn't knock twice.